Beard of Zeus. You're listening to the Mid-Morning Show with Perry and Graham on Talk Sports.
Mike, I think you better explain. What is that all about?
Well, that is Will Ferrell, right? One of the most famous comedians in the world. 7 years he was on Saturday Night Live. He won a Tony for doing a show on Broadway, in which he impersonated George W. Bush all the way through. He's one of the most famous men in Hollywood now, because every picture that he makes ends up breaking box office records. He makes about $20 million a picture. We went to interview him yesterday in the afternoon. He and Mark Wahlberg together in Soho. They're starring in a new movie called The Other Guys, and it's a sort of action comedy movie set in New York City. They're playing New York detectives. And you, first of all, couldn't be bothered going to see the movie before we went to do the interview.
I am a busy man. I couldn't get to West End Theatre on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock.
You can't possibly interview anybody if you haven't seen the film, right? Now, I then had to go through a huge, ridiculous number of detailed discussions with you before we actually went in to interview these guys, in order for you not to look stupid. I told you the plot of the film.
You gave me all the wrong facts.
No, I told you that the plot of the film was about these two guys who normally would stay in the background. Nobody knew them. They stayed working at their desk. Suddenly, they're propelled into the midst of this great big mammoth detective story, and they end up emerging as heroes, okay? Now, despite all of this, and despite the fact that you then had to keep asking people which one was which before we went in, pointing at pictures, I don't know which one's Will, I don't know which one is, Mark.
I'm not a great moviegoer.
Well,
I'm not a great moviegoer.
There are pictures on the website which show a picture of the four of us together, you looking distinctly out of place, because clearly after the interview, when the picture was taken...
Well, you look like the chairman of the fan club.
They were particularly embarrassed, I think, by your lack of knowledge about the film. The interview we're now going to hear is playing out in various points. I'm going to have to explain each bit as it comes along. This is, of course, the first question that you asked after I told you how these guys become the heroes of the movie, and this is how it all starts.
Delighted to say with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, it's your new film, you're in London, the premiere's tonight. You guys must be very excited. Can I ask Will first? Will, it looks to me like from seeing the film, you start off as the fall guys, you end up as the villains. Sorry, what are you laughing at?
Well, we're going to hear his answer in a second.
Well, let's hear it then. Delighted to say with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, it's your new film, you're in London, the premiere's tonight. You guys must be very excited. Can I ask Will first? Will, it looks to me like from seeing the film, you start off as the fall guys, you end up as the villains. Talk us through the film.
Well, we end up as the heroes. We're basically...
You're a pimp with carrying a knife, so you could be classified as a villain,
I guess.
Or social.
How are you? I tell you what, we'll start that again. Okay. No, because you're right. Heroes. Start off as the fall guys, end up as the heroes, okay? We'll go from there. No problem. Right, okay. So, Will, talking about your new film, you start off as the fall guys, you end up as the heroes. Talk us through the plot of that film.
Yes, I play Detective Alan Gamble, and I'm partnered with my friend Terry Hoyts here.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm basically I'm a forensic accountant. I love paperwork. Mark's kind of a guy from the streets who was being groomed for a top job as a detective, and then until he shot Derek Jeter.
Now, the problem with that, Mike, right, is that you've already made a complete and utter bumbling fool of yourself, right? This is the guy who, at the very least, expects you to walk into the room with him and to ask him at least a question that looks as though you may have watched the film. He was completely embarrassed. He said, no.
He's a villain.
No, but he said, so we are the heroes. You then say, right, well, let's just do that one again, okay?
No, I didn't say that at all.
That's what everybody just heard. Now... Having had the plot of the movie explained to you,
this has not been properly edited. This is what, to our listeners, we call a pre-recorded interview. It has lots of lateral in it.
Stop interrupting me. Stop interrupting me. After that, you ask them the next question, right? You've already worked out from him what the story is like. The storyline is about two guys who are heroes, okay?
Yes.
Let's hear what the second question was.
Okay, is this good cop, bad cop, and who's the good cop?
I guess we're... both good cops. Yeah. I don't really have an answer for that one.
Yeah. I'm delighted to hear it.
You don't have an answer for that. Well, he doesn't have an answer for that because it's a stupid question.
It's not a stupid
because it's not good cop, bad cop, because you haven't seen the bloody film.
There's always good cop, bad cop.
That's why it was such a nightmare. Now, the rest of the interview, I have to say, didn't go much better than that.
Yeah. Mark, tell us, in this film, when you point at each other, who comes out on top? Who's the man who really rises to the top in this one?
Will's character.
For sure?
For sure.
I thought a lot of similarities between your guy in this movie and the guy in The Departed, because the guy in The Departed was actually funny in the same way that you were in this movie quite dangerous. I mean, this is your first kind of proper comedy role, I guess. You're going to do some more of it?
Yeah, I would love to do more of it. I think if that movie was cut a little bit differently and maybe the score was a little bit differently, it could also come across as a full-blown comedy. You know, and tonally, I love the way these guys work. They really try to play things as real as possible and very straightforward, and that's the way I like to work, so.
And you guys smashed up an awful lot of cars, didn't you? I mean, was that...
Yeah, but they're only those little cheap Priuses, so it's actually a good thing that we get rid of those things.
Yeah, those things are awful. You don't really believe in using those to save the planet or anything, do you?
No, because, you know, all that science is... Yeah.
Why are we worried about the birds and the bees and the trees when we got people in the streets?
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, you must...
That's your guys' motto, right?
Our motto is what?
Don't worry about the birds and the bees when you got people in the streets.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's one of our mottos. Yeah. We have several at TalkSport. Well, tell me this. In the ratings of the films that you've done, where does this rate? Because obviously it's top of the box office in America at the moment, but when you look back on your career, how proud are you of this one compared to the rest?
Right. I have a canon of over 300 films. Most of them have been shot down in Mexico. And a lot of audiences haven't seen. But I put this in the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see. You're here in London. I don't know how many times you've been here before. We've been hearing that certainly Will is a Chelsea fan.
As far as Chelsea is concerned, I just have their jersey. So.
Did you get it off anybody in particular?
No, I just bought it at a souvenir shop.
Okay, thanks. Well, in this film, you're playing a cop. You played a cop before. Do you like playing cops?
Wait, when did I play a cop before?
No, I said, have you played a cop before?
Oh, no, I haven't. This is my first time. Mm-hmm. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed, in fact, a lot of times I'd take my prop gun home with me and walk through the streets of New York and arrest people. So, yeah.
Really, yeah. Do you not get arrested in doing that?
No, as long as you know where to hide. You know, it's not that big a deal. Yeah.
It's not a problem. Right. People think that movie stars just appear. You know, you guys just suddenly appear on the silver screen and you're the chosen ones and all that. But in fact, you've both got fantastic histories, having worked long and hard to get where you are now. For instance, 7 years on Saturday Night Live must have been a pretty tough grooming, eh?
You know, it was a great place to kind of comedy boot camp, you know, to cut your teeth on learning how to do a bunch of different things, working with, you know, tons of different actors and that sort of thing. So it definitely prepared me to kind of go on into film.
Mm. Is being a movie star not a little bit sort of routine compared to taking on live audiences and standing there and seeing, like, you know, tens of millions of people watching you live rather than recorded?
Well, it's definitely a different animal. You know, the great thing about live TV is the reaction is immediate, and it's more like it's closer to doing theater. And film, you know, has a different set of pressures and responsibilities, but, you know, I kind of like them both.
So things are going so badly at this point. The only thing I had left in the armoury, right?
You didn't have anything in the armoury.
All these stupid
you
questions.
kept asking ridiculous questions.
No, the only reason that they answered
Smashing
my
up
questions...
cars, what was all that about?
Well, because I'd seen the film, and that was part of the point. The only thing that I could show to Mark Wahlberg, who is, of course, famously a former Calvin Klein underwear model, who once posed with Kate Moss, I thought I'd show him the pictures of you in your underwear, which are now also on our website, talksport.co.uk. Very disturbing pictures. Let's find out what Mark Wahlberg thought of those. Mike Porky Parry, as we call him on TalkSport, also did some poses, and I just want you to take a look at them and see whether or not you think that they would measure up to some of the stuff that you did for Calvin Klein.
Yes. Whoa. Gosh, I gotta get you next to Eva Mendes. That's kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
Well, I think disturbing is a pretty good way. What do you think of
the grainy black and white? Yeah. It looks like, you know, the photos right before a murder scene. Yeah.
Or possibly right after.
Yeah, either way.
And finally, right, even though I'd already asked him about Chelsea, you threw in the final question that we had, the last minute we had, you asked him about the game football again.
Yes. What about Chelsea Football Club?
How are they doing this year?
Very, very well. They haven't dropped anything yet so far. After 4 games, they're doing brilliantly. Undefeated, haven't dropped a point. Top of the league and favourites to win the European trophy.
Arsenal, though, they're the lads who are in trouble.
Well, they're not in trouble. They're just not doing as well as Chelsea. Do you follow the game from when you're around?
I follow a little bit. I follow, you know, whenever I can catch one of the games. But, yeah, it's always, you know, What's interesting is it's great football until the World Cup happens, and then all hell breaks loose.
Absolutely right. Yeah, and we were there, unfortunately, for a month. So
some sad days.
Well, that's probably I'm a changed man, completely changed man.
Thanks very much. I think that's it, isn't it?
Thank you very much indeed.